This morning, newly released video captures the moment gunshots rang out in Philadelphia. The massive crowd seen fleeing a popular nightlife area Saturday night as gunfire kills 3 people and leaves 11 others wounded.
Horrendous and unthinkable acts happened.
Just hours later in Chattanooga, Tennessee, police say 12 more people were injured and 2 others killed by gunfire at a nightclub.
There's going to be multiple shooters. We cannot confirm how many, but there's definitely more than one.
The back-to-back deadly shootings capping a weekend of gun violence across the nation. Since Friday, there have been 13 mass shootings across the country, according to the Gun Violence Archive, which defines mass shootings as 4 or more shot, not including the shooter. On Saturday, 8 injured and 1 dead in Phoenix. And in Summerton, South Carolina, 1 person was killed and 7 others injured, including 5 minors.
I am furious, not just for my neighborhood, for the whole country.
As you can see there, the violence continues over the weekend. In many places, people talk about Chattanooga, Philly in specific, but as we saw, South Carolina, Phoenix, it doesn't really find itself in one particular region or area, even though we want to talk about all the big cities of Chicago and New York, LA. Yes, those are big cities. That's why they happen more. There's more people. Anyways, let's go to some of the details and stats of what happened over the weekend, because the tally for the weekend violence through Sunday night was at least 12 killed and at least 38 injured in mass shootings. That was defined by the Gun Violence Archive as an incident in which 4 or more people were shot or killed. We talked about there. So the details of the biggest one this weekend was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Philly. The most notable violence of the weekend though, Philly, 3 were killed, 12 were injured. In Chattanooga, they saw that second weekend in a row of a mass shooter violence again. We didn't even hear about it the weekend before. This time with 2 dead and 12 others injured from the gunfire, and a 3rd person died after being struck by a car, probably in all the insane scurrying to get away for their lives. There's also a few more. Clarendon County, South Carolina, late Saturday graduation party outside of a residence was interrupted by a drive-up shooting that may have involved 2 vehicles, the sheriff's office said. A 32-year-old woman was struck by gunfire and died on Sunday morning. 7 others, including children ages 12 to 17 and a 36-year-old were injured, is what the office also said. The violence might have been gang-related, the Clarendon County Sheriff's Office said in a statement. Also in Phoenix, as I mentioned, here's the details on the Phoenix one. Early Saturday, a 14-year-old girl was killed and 8 others were injured when an argument between multiple parties escalated with shots fired at a party. About 100 people were at the party inside a strip mall building on the area of 10th Avenue and Hatcher Road, Phoenix police said. So it could go on and on and on. This is what we talked about, and John Iadarola says it a lot. If we talked about the numbers of mass shootings, this isn't like it's new. I want to point this out. We're pointing this out because now the country's paying more attention to it. We pay attention to it when it happens, but we're paying more attention to it because the discussions are now going with our politicians where they're saying bipartisan talks are happening with doing something about this. And there's even, I don't even want to remember his name, some pundit said, oh yeah, it's the blacks. It's the blacks that are doing it. So anytime people want to try and put this in one particular corner, fine, say it's the black folks that are doing it so you can have your political racism. What are we gonna do about it? That's never, ever the question that comes next, Jessica.
I think we're in an interesting moment where, I don't know, around the 70s, people were investigating crimes on the basis of motive, means, and opportunity. And then we saw the rise of serial killings where people were killing people they had never met, complete strangers. And the FBI and law enforcement had to completely change how they investigated crimes and do a lot of research to figure out why people were doing these things. And they found that oftentimes it was, psychological damage that happened in their youth that led to them committing acts of violence in their future. We need a similar assessment of why are people committing mass shootings? We really need to be thinking deeply about this. It needs to be a lot of psychologists and sociologists looking into this. And I mean, you have people like Durkheim, who's a sociologist, who says that crime is a reflection of larger problems in society. I think to some degree that's true. But I also think we've seen pretty clearly that oftentimes these mass shootings are racially and politically motivated. And we don't have a government that's operating like we have the growth of fascism and racial violence in the United States. And that's got to change. We've got to have the FBI looking into these mass shooters, identifying their political motivations. And I used to be afraid about the precedents we would set, McCarthy era revival, if we have the government looking into people doing things for political motivations. But we've got to point out that it's something entirely different to be motivated by racial hatred and fascist violence and Nazi ideologies from what the left is motivated by, which is giving everyone health care, ensuring everyone has housing. And so that kind of precedent shouldn't affect members of the left who are not committing extreme acts of violence like we're seeing in these mass shootings. And I honestly think we need to look to what Germany does, where there was a group chat among a few members of a police force where they were pretty sympathetic towards Nazis, saying a lot of racially motivated things. They disbanded the entire police force. We've got to be extremely vigilantly anti-racist and anti-fascist, I think, in the meantime, until we get to the bottom of how do we resolve mass shootings beyond gun control? How do we prevent people from wanting to commit mass acts of violence?
Yeah, I think it was Jim Jordan during that contentious debate with House members about what to do about it. And he said, we need to get to the bottom of it. We need the answers, the whys. Why? I agree, Jim, except his thought, his conversation, and his interest in the subject end right there. Because after that then comes, it's their fault, vote for me. That's the purpose, which is why it's ridiculous whenever they say, stop making it political. It's only political when you just complain about it and have no intention of bringing up a solution.